In this section, we're going to talk about a word that maybe you haven't heard before called stretching. I never know whether I've made up things or whether I stole them from somebody. You know, they say if you steal one thing from one person without acknowledging it, you're a plagiarist. But if you steal many things from many people without acknowledging it, you're a researcher. And I say, that's what I am, a researcher. But anyway, I like the idea of stretching. Now, stretching means that if I draw a big circle on the board at home, this is your comfort zone. And as long as you stay inside and you do and you say and you have the emotions and so forth, inside your comfort zone, because you've done them repeatedly, you feel very comfortable. But if you stay inside your comfort zone, if you never do anything in which you're uncomfortable, you know what you're going to be like when you die? You'll be like what you're like now. You'll have a few more wrinkles, but you'll be just exactly like what you are now. You will never really grow beyond that unless you step out of your comfort zone, and that's what's called stretching. Stepping out of your comfort zone. Now, it's amazing to me, but they say that there are comfort zones in almost everything. In the way you spend your time, how much time you spend on such and such, and the activities you engage in, the way you dress. I remember telling a class one time after I performed a wedding, and the men came up in these frilly little Lord Fauntleroy tuxedos, and I said, oh, I would feel so strange in one of those. So two of the boys offered to rent one if I would come into class in a little Lord Fauntleroy tuxedo. But stretching, I'm convinced, is the key to growth. Cardinal Newman once said, if you want to grow, you've got to change. And if you want to grow much, you've got to change often. And I think that any form of change, any deviation from what has been, is a form of stretching, and it's bound to cause some pain in your life. Now, what is the motivation to stretch? Why should you stretch? Well, there are really two. One is you're going to be a freer person. You'll have a much larger zone of activity. I remember one time there was a lady who said that she couldn't give a speech in public. She was great at teaching little children about religion, but she said, when I try to speak to adults, she said, everything from my hips on down starts shaking. And I said, why don't you do it? Why don't you try it? And, I can't do it. And I said, tell you what, I said, I'm giving a day of recollection to a group of women. And I said, I will mention that we happen to have with us an expert. Would you like to say a few words? And if you don't want to, you can say no. But if you want to, get up and give your little talk. So she said, all right. Well, she did. And she came back and said, it works, it works. She was screaming in back of me, it works, it works, it works. So she wrote to her speech teacher back in another part of the country that it did work by stretching. And the speech teacher wrote back, tell Powell to stay on his own side of the street. But it does work. It does work. And every time you stretch, you're a freer person. You know, Joseph Lindvorsky was a Polish Jesuit psychologist. And he said there's no such thing as a strong will or a weak will. What is strong or weak in people is motivation. So if you're motivated, like a bank robber must be, I could never rob a bank. My goodness, I would die of apoplexy before I could rob a bank. But a bank robber has a strong will. It's just misdirected, of course. But it's a strong will because he's motivated. He's motivated. What is the motivation for stretching? To be a free person. To be a totally free person. Not to have to live inside of a straitjacket or to paint yourself into a little corner of life where you have to live in that corner for the rest of your life. To be a free person. Now this will shock you. I used to be shy. I know, but my kindergarten teacher, and don't laugh now, died 2 years ago. And Catherine Ford died in Chicago, and I said to her one time, after I had given her granddaughter's commencement address at school, I said, what was I like, Catherine? In a little group we were standing around. She said, oh, Johnny, she said, you were the shyest little boy I've ever taught. And she had a prodigious memory. She could remember my grandfather bringing me to school and putting his 10-gallon hat on his chest and saying, Miss Ford, you're going to have another Powell. And I said, you remember that? And she said, yes, and I remember you looking up so afraid. And I said, you know, Catherine, you were looking on at that little boy, but I was inside of him suffering. But she, among many other people, challenged me to come out of myself, to step out. And it was really hard. You really develop stretch marks when you stretch. I remember when I got to high school, I got into debating. And the first judge of the debate that I was in said, I could hear your feet shuffling louder than your voice speaking. And I thought, oh, I was so terrified. I thought I was going to faint. But fortunately, there were people there who kept encouraging me, people who kept challenging me, and I kept coming out a little bit. And if you take small steps, if you take small stretches at first, you get the stretch mentality. It's like a game. I'm going to do something that was right and reasonable. You never do something crazy just to stretch. But do something right and reasonable. I've always wanted to be able to do and never been able to do. Now, people ordinarily think of, say, giving a speech in public. I can't give a speech in public. Give one. Make it a small group, of course, but give one. But there are so many other areas of stretching. And I would like to suggest a few of these before we go into that second motivation for stretching. And one thing is the emotions you can show. You know, they say that everybody has the whole gamut and galaxy of emotions, but some people have been told, we don't get angry in this family, now don't you dare raise your voice. And these people are brought up in such a way that they can't be angry, or they can't be afraid. They can never, you know, my father told my brother and me that a man is never afraid of anything, and I believed it. I believed it for 40 years, and people would say, are you afraid? And I would say, of what? What should I be afraid of? And meanwhile, I was popping Pepto-Bismols, and oh, it was a terrible life. Rolaids, because my poor stomach didn't know I wasn't afraid, but my mouth knew. Because my father told me a man is never afraid of anything. But there are some people that really have repressed emotions. And one of the emotions that's the saddest is the emotion of love. There are some people that have never told anyone, I love you. You know, my poor dad, my dad and mother are both in heaven, I hope. And my poor dad was dying, and he was on his deathbed, and my mother told me this later, that he leaned down and said to her, did you ever love me? And on the way home from the hospital, she said, he asked me if I ever loved him. Now, why would he ask that? And I remember saying, I don't know, but I did know. Tevye, you know, asks his wife that question in Fiddler on the Roof. Do you love me? And she said, hey, father question, I wash your socks, I boil your eggs, and you ask me if I love you? But I think that's true, that some people just don't know how to say I love you. They just know how to be affectionate. And I think that's a good area to learn how to stretch in. To stretch by being more affectionate, to step out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's not comfortable for you to say I love you. Maybe it's not comfortable for you to give someone a hug or to affirm somebody, to tell them that they helped you a great deal. But stretch. And the nice part about stretching is the first time is always an agony. If you make a big stretch, if you take a little stretch, it's not so much of an agony. But the second time, it's a lot easier. And the third time, it's a lot easier. Remember, I used to be shy. I could have never given a speech in public. And now I say, have briefcase, we'll travel. You know? Well, they call me loudmouth, motor mouth, and a number of other things, you know. And I say, well, yeah, sure. Yeah. But it's really interesting. To be free is to step out of yourself. Now, one of the other areas that I think is really worthwhile stretching, and again, I had to learn this, was to apologize. You know, in our family, my family of origin, I don't remember anybody ever apologizing. No, maybe they did, but I don't remember it. But I don't remember anyone ever saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I was wrong. You know what we always said? Oh, I was just giving you a taste of your own medicine. You did the same thing to me 2 weeks ago, and I'm just doing it to you to show you how it feels, you know? We always made up some justification for what we were doing instead of saying, hey, I was wrong, I'm sorry. And I remember the first time I had to apologize when I realized I was wrong. It was agony, a real stretch to say, oh, I'm sorry, I goofed. Do you know, I gave a retreat one time at a place called Highland Mills, New York, and a nun who made it said, you know, I had to walk out on you 15 years ago, and I made a retreat from you. And I said, you did? Why did you walk out? She said, you were the Messiah. You knew everything. And I said, yeah, you're right, I was. I had a Messiah complex at the time. I thought if you're going to be a spiritual leader, don't give forth an uncertain sound. You've got to blow the bugle. I got it all together, you know? And so it was a real stretch for me to come down from Mount Olympus, you know, where the other gods live, and just say, hey, you want to see the Messiah? You see the big guy. I'm just one of his helpers, you know. I just got some of my answers. I'm not the church's answer man. But what I found out was it was a real stretch. It was a real stretch to come down and say, hey, I don't know. I don't know. I'll look it up for you if you want me to. But a real stretch to say that. But what I discovered, and thank God I discovered it, was people can identify with someone who's more fallible than they can with perfection. If you put yourself across as being perfect, you know, I'm perfect. I have no... you know, I think, I can't breathe the same air as you. How I can get up on your pedestal. But anyway, that was a stretch for me, and I think it's a good stretch, the apology stretch, the weakness stretch. I am weak. I'm still stretching, trying to grow old gracefully. I'm still trying to stretch. I'm always trying to stretch, trying to do, I think, a stretch a day, you know. Do one thing every day that you don't like to do. Ooh, you know, you think, the world may go into a holding pattern if I do that, and you find out the world doesn't, and no one dies. Everybody is fine. And so I think a stretch a day, and you get the stretch mentality, you get that growth mentality. I'm going to grow. But there are so many areas in which you can stretch. You can tell a secret that you've never told before. Admit a weakness that you've never admitted before. Share a hurt that you've never shared before. Risk a rejection that you've never risked before. I wasn't allowed to fall on my face, you know. Fall on your face. Collect a few rejection slips. You find out they aren't so painful. And then you're free. Then you're a free person. But the second motive that I would like to suggest for stretching is, I think it's Eric Fromm who says, a psychoanalyst, who says, unused potential turns into something destructive. And what I would like to explain that as, if you could imagine yourself, okay, just temporarily, as a cylinder. And coming up through that cylinder is a certain amount of, a quantified amount of psychic energy. You only have so much to expend, and you can direct it out of this top or out one of the spigots on the side and so forth. Now, if you direct it, it's called sublimation. If you direct your energy. Jesus says, learn to make your lives an act of love. Spend your lives in loving. But if you don't direct it, if you don't use it positively, as I'm sure other people do, it will turn into something destructive. It'll leak out in the form of worry. And you'll develop an ulcer because you're always worried about everything, or guilt or something. It'll sneak out, squirt out in various ways out of the cylinder if you don't direct it, if you don't use it. So what I'm suggesting is that stretching will help you use that energy, direct it. You know, I'm convinced that a scientist like Thomas Edison, they say he slept, no, don't try this now, 3 hours a night. Well, I understood he took cat naps in between, but he was so engrossed with his discoveries. Sigmund Freud supposedly never made love to his wife after 40 years old because he discovered, my God, I've discovered the unconscious mind. There is a mind underneath that I've discovered. And he was ecstatic about this, and he spent the rest of his life trying to discover what was in that unconscious mind. I'm sure a politician in the last days of the election saying, get out the votes, get out the votes. How many votes do we have? Well, who's the ward healer in this community, you know? This is called sublimation. This is directing all that energy out one or other of the spigots. And what I'm convinced of is that 90% of human potential is left unused, that a lot of it does squirt out. The little side leaks of worry and guilt and anger and so forth. And oh, we get into such a mess simply because we will not use 100% of all the quantified psychic energy, mobile energy, affective energy that is in us. So what I would suggest you do, you know, you've been asked, of course, about naming good things about yourself, Lover's Count of Blessings. What do you think God has blessed you? Write a list of what you would consider stretches for you. Now, they're different for everybody. Some people who can't show anger, who can't show affection, can show other emotions very easily. I had a very hard time, I still have a hard time, I think, showing fear. I don't like to admit that I'm afraid because I think it somehow compromises my masculinity. But I do show fear. I do say, hey, I'm scared. And I find out that people can identify more with this, and then it becomes, as the more I try it, the easier it becomes. But make out a list of stretches for you, things that were right and reasonable, that you've always wanted to do, but you have a hard time doing. Now, I had an Hispanic boy at school who never told anyone he loved them. I thought Hispanics were good at this. And I said to him, I tell you what, he wanted me to write him a letter of recommendation. I'll write the letter for you if you tell someone that you love them. I said, do you love anybody? He said, oh, yeah, I love my family. I said, tell your family that you love them. Tell some member of your family. Just put your arm around your father, your mother, your little sister. Tell them you love them. With my bare face hanging out, I'm supposed to say that? And I said, yep. You want me to write that letter or don't you? So I wrote the letter, and I don't know whether we made a deal. And I hope he did. And I hope you will do that too. I hope you will find some area in which you can stretch, in which you can become a freer person, in which you can use some of that mobile, effective, psychic energy that maybe is remaining unused and is sneaking out of the cylinder in undesirable ways. And here's Loretta, who's going to give you an exercise.
Hello, John. Okay, I'm going to challenge you to stretch. I'm going to stretch with you, but let me think of a stretch that I know that is necessary for me to do in my life if I want to grow, and then ask you if any of you have something similar like that, okay? First, starting with, there's a lot of emotions in the world, there's a lot of emotions within each one of us, but I think each one of us have divided them into columns of acceptable emotions and unacceptable emotions, okay? I have a column called unacceptable emotions. The most current one on that, the most consistent one on that column is anger. I'm not supposed to be angry. Anger is a waste of time. What's the point of getting angry? So, in a sense, I don't allow anger. I get angry, once or twice a decade because it just slips out. I haven't controlled it, okay? What I'm really talking about, though, is allowing anger to even exist within me, let alone expressing it. When someone says to me, aren't you angry about that? I say, I feel this and that, but not anger. So that's one that I just don't allow, and therefore I can't even get in touch with it myself. Do you know of an emotion that you don't allow? One clue is that if you almost never have it, you probably aren't allowing it. Anybody?
I have trouble expressing joy in life and finding the good parts of life, getting away from bitterness and resentment.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Do you recognize that you have joy in you?
Yes.
But it's way down in here, huh?
Way down in here, and just letting that take over rather than letting the resentment
take over, huh?
take over.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have another emotion that you don't even admit to for yourself?
The emotion of hurt, because it's very scary to me not to be in control and to be vulnerable. And to hurt seems to me to expose me. And the more that I experience myself being willing to experience my hurt, the more I discover my joy, as you were talking about. So I don't know that I really experienced joy before I could admit being wounded. Once I could admit being a wounded person and that was all right to be wounded, that was not all right with me, and to be vulnerable and not to be perfect, then I think in my journey now, I'm beginning to discover joy. But that's pretty scary too, just to be the joy of joy.
Good. Thank you, Kay. Anyone else? Emotions that you don't even admit to yourself.
Well, I don't know if it's an emotion or maybe a feeling, maybe we're confused, but of being weak. Everybody expects me to be superhuman, superpower, do it, give it to Nanny and she'll do it. And I do.
Do you expect you to be that way too?
I don't know. I don't know. It's been so long expected that you just carry it. And you get tired. And then
Good.
you get angry, I think. So it's kind of a mixture of things.
So stretch and be weak.
I would love to.
Okay. We'll just leave you with the thought for now anyhow. Put it on a list, get it started. Anybody else have an emotion that you know you don't allow yourself to have?
I think mine is not being able to tell people that they have hurt me or that they've said something to me that has been upsetting to me. I'm working on that.
Okay. All right. And expressing your hurt. I feel hurt. Anyone else? An emotion that you know you haven't really allowed yourself to have?
I'd like to ask you what you do with anger. Does anger not serve a purpose sometimes? If you see injustice, does it not make you aware that something is wrong? And so does it not resolve itself into resentment?
Okay. Are you asking, you're asking me personally because I said that.
As a general rule, I think there's a place for anger.
Yes, I think intellectually I want to say I think and I know there's a place for anger, but somehow in the way I've organized myself to survive in this world, I've decided to think about anger rather than express it. And so when I see something, as you said, that you would call unjust in this world, I say, that's unjust, that shouldn't be, but I keep the emotional piece way at a distance. I put a buffer in there somehow. I'm not saying it's right, but that's what I do with anger. And then I say, well, it won't make it any better if I get angry. Well, it'll make it better if someone does something about it, or if someone writes something about it. So to get angry is just a waste of time. That's where I get into those attitudes, which are not good and not healthy attitudes. So I think you're right that anger has a place and it helps to undo injustices. But I managed to talk myself out of expressing the anger. It's amazing what we can do, isn't it? All right, let me ask you a different kind of stretch question. What do you need to freely admit? Now, this isn't true confession time. I don't mean it that way. But I'll give you my example. What I need to admit more often than I do is that I need something. Because I'm going to be a little self-reliant person. And I'm going to not need it. I'll do it myself kind of thing. And I even forget to say I need something when I actually do. And I scurry around and take care of the thing myself. And sometimes someone comes along and says, say, do you need? And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that'd be all right. It doesn't even occur to me by this time in my life. So I have sort of really forgotten to say I need. Now, what is it that you might have that's similar to that? Something that you literally don't do. You don't say you need. I need help is what I don't say. What might you not be saying that you could stretch and start saying from now on?
I need to acknowledge that I can be vulnerable. I have a real need to want to be able to deal with everything that comes my way and to know that, yes, I can handle this. I am equipped to deal with everything that comes to me, and I don't need any help, and nothing is ever going to happen to me that I can't deal with by myself. So I need to be able to admit, maybe, that I could be vulnerable.
Great, thank you. Okay, that'll be a good stretch, huh? Okay. And so now one more kind of stretch, something that you know you need to do. And my stretch for the day, for the week, whatever, is I need to learn how to continue to interact in positive ways with people I don't like. Now, I don't mean that I don't deal with what I don't like or I don't process all that. But a lot of times when I don't get along with someone for a certain amount of time, I just say, well, I'll just go deal with someone else instead. And I just walk away from it. So I need to be able to stay right there and process what's going wrong, but also to continue to relate like it's okay, we're going to keep going on in life together. Whether it's someone you work with or someone you relate to real well, I need to stay with it. I need to relate, whether it's happy, sad, mad, glad, and not just walk away from it. I'll go somewhere else. I'll deal with someone else. In terms of doing, what might you put on your list in terms of something you need to do to stretch?
I know myself well enough to know that I have a lot of ideas that I don't share with people that I feel like are going to disagree. I have values that I feel like a lot of people don't have, so I won't share them ever. And that's something that I've done consistently throughout my life. If someone has the same values as me, okay, I'll share my values with them. That's fun. But what I need to realize is that people that don't share my values are still going to accept me and accept my ideas. And part of my stretching, part of what I need to do is to start sharing ideas and saying, okay, it really doesn't hurt that bad. And if they don't like me because of what I have to say, then it's their loss.
Great, Laura. Thank you for stretching right here and now. That's really good. Yeah, you got to be you, don't you? Okay, let me challenge you or leave you with this challenge. Make out that list John was suggesting. Even if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the most, 5 stretches, and then start. One day at a time, one stretch at a time, or a particular stretch, like let's say the one Laura just mentioned. Just make up your mind that every week you're going to find some medium in which you're going to speak up where before you were too timid to. And then see what happens in a month. You won't even know yourself. You'll be so amazed how outgoing you are. So for each one of us, let's try and remember to work with the stretches, make the list, start into it, because the first stretch is really to decide. Decide I want to grow, and I can't grow unless I step outside my comfort zone. In the next segment, John's going to focus on something we call good finding, and we'll have a lot of fun with that, I think. Thank you.